Good job, I'm Jerry. About to check out 10 WWE superstars who bravely stood up to Vince McMahon. This video is about WrestleMania. Standing up to Vince McMahon is like sort of the hardest thing to do because he's the boss. He signs the checks, and he can fire you if you don't go along with whatever plan he has for you creatively. And we got 10 wrestlers who are openly known to have stand up to him. But we could also mention Sasha Banks, Naomi, because they stood up to Vince. They didn't like what he was going with the in the direction of the women's tag team titles when they won it, and they walked out. CM Punk is another one who stood up to Vince, amongst other people who might not be named in this video, but we about to see who are those 10 superstars who bravely stood up to Vince McMahon. Let's go.
Vince McMahon is notoriously one of the scariest individuals in pro wrestling.
Yeah, a lot of people say he's very intimidating.
Wrestlers past and present have spoken out about how daunting interactions with McMahon can be. The majority of wrestlers have allowed McMahon to micromanage them, but certain wrestlers have shown no intimidation when it comes to McMahon and have stood up for what they believe
Bret Hart.
Right. Join us now as WrestleMania looks at 10 WWE wrestlers who stood up to Vince McMahon. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out our new channel, WrestleMania Shorts. Number 10, The Shield. After debuting in WWE in late 2012, The Shield were on an impressive run, but it was set to come to a halt at the 2013 Elimination Chamber event. Initial creative plans called for The Shield to lose a 6-man tag match against John Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus, and the planned finish was to see Cena stand tall.
Damn.
Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins knew that this was the wrong finish. The finish wouldn't have benefited anyone and would have ultimately buried The Shield just before WrestleMania 29. It's been well documented how The Shield reacted to these creative plans as the decorated trio decided to boldly take a visit to Vince McMahon's office and they stood up to the creative direction WWE were taking. The Shield logically the creative decision didn't work, and amazingly McMahon actually listened to what the trio had to say and even changed the finish. The Shield would win the 6-man tag matchup and they would remain unbeaten for the next several months on WWE television. Number 9, The Godfather. In 1999, The Godfather was struggling to find a place on the card, and as a result he went to Vince McMahon to vent his frustrations. McMahon stated that it's sometimes beneficial to be off TV, but Godfather clapped back at McMahon as he questioned what McMahon was saying. As a result, the former Intercontinental Champion was booked in a 1-minute squash on TV as a clear punishment for standing up to the boss. He offered some insight into this stories on with Briscoe and Bradshaw.
So I go in there and talk to Vince, and I explained my side to Vince. He goes, "You know, Charles, sometimes it's better not to be on TV than it is to be on TV." But I don't hear that. I don't hear that. I keep going. No, well, I got found out. Once again, Charles, sometimes it's better not to be on TV than it is to be on TV. Don't want to hear it. Okay, all right, I'll put you on TV. You want me on TV? I'll put you on TV. So the new car comes up, right? Godfather, Triple H, no hose. 1 minute.
Damn.
Number 8, Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam has always been a wrestler who's been willing to go against the norm and remove himself from situations that he feels uncomfortable in. In the 2000s, Vince McMahon wanted RVD to attend the annual tribute to the troop show in Iraq, but RVD told McMahon that he had no plans of going to the event.
Wow.
On his podcast, this is what the former WWE champion had to say about the infamous Act of Defiance. "I was stewing about it, and other wrestlers are coming up to me saying, 'Man, Rob, I respect you for saying no. Like, I don't want to go either, but I can't say no. I'm not RVD, dude.' Why do I always hear that? Like, there's something in my contract that says I can get no heat. You know what I mean? I just have principles, and I'm not going to be a puppet, and you know, that works for and against me. But I'm here saying that Christmas break, I'll be in California, or wherever the hell I lived at the time. I guess that was it. Anyway, it was a subject, like, are they not going to let you go? I was getting mad. What do you mean, let me not go? Like I'm a prisoner."
Damn.
According to the former head of talent relations for WWE, Jim Ross, on his podcast, RVD saying no to the trip resulted in him receiving substantial backstage heat. Of course, there was backstage heat. Vince looked at it as an unpatriotic act, more or less. And look, I admire and I always have Vince McMahon's patriotism, and the United States should love him because he pays a load of taxes, and I know he's legit about his love of Dr. Martin Luther King. Amen to that. But you know, sometimes you can take this stuff too far. Here's the deal. Here's how I would have addressed that. Vince, he doesn't want to go. He's not comfortable going. Number 7,
Mark Henry.
Mark Henry.
Mark Henry stood up to Vince too?
Back in 2011, a prank on Mark Henry backfired in a major way, and it resulted in Henry confronting Vince McMahon and almost quitting on the spot. Henry was supposed to wrestle a dog match against Sin Cara, but Cara never appeared for the match, and this left Henry utterly embarrassed. According to Henry during an interview with Chris Van Vliet, Henry expressed why the incident made him angry, and the Hall of Famer had a completely valid argument. I felt disrespected. I felt trivialized. Out of all the work that I did, like all the sacrifices, you people say, oh, you got paid a lot of money. You know what, man? I didn't get paid enough money to dummy down my pride and respect as man. Ain't no price for that. And when that happened, I felt like, okay, I'm expendable. I'm useless to them. They don't respect me. Being that I'm a man and I was able to say my piece to Vince and everybody involved, like, just know who I am, because that won't ever happen again.
Whoa.
If it does, like, us talking will not be an option. Henry went on to state that he used the anger from the incident to fuel the acclaimed Hall of Fame character, which would arguably end up being Henry's most successful and
that was his best run right there.
WWE. Number 6,
Mick Foley.
Mick Foley and Vince McMahon have always had an interesting relationship behind the scenes, and at one point during Foley's stint as a commentator on SmackDown, Foley had enough of McMahon's poor
That's why he left him with the TNA.
And this ultimately led to him exiting WWE in favor of TNA. Foley and McMahon would embark in a heated confrontation due to Foley giving his notice to the company, which Foley detailed on his podcast.
I officially gave the notice. I made it really clear that if that was part of the job, I didn't want any part of it. And Vince, he tried to. This is where I'm hesitant because Vince he's imagine going through a tough time. I tried to text him for his birthday, and that's the WWE number, so it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
But I said, Vince, what's the end game here? If I work hard at this for 10 years and I get as good as I could possibly be, will you treat me the way you treat JR? Oh. And then he gets about this close. He goes, you think I've been bad to him? I said, I think you've made his life a lot more difficult than it needed to be.
Damn.
Number 5, Chris Jericho. Even though Chris Jericho is an AEW talent, he is still extremely close with Vince McMahon, with Jericho even going on record to say that he could text McMahon at any time of the day and he would be guaranteed a reply. The relationship between the two hasn't always been great, however, as according to Jericho, the two had an argument that was so severe that Jericho wanted to punch McMahon in the face. The story goes that when Jericho was picked to host the show Downfall, he kept it private, as he didn't want WWE or McMahon interfering. However, when Jericho was on the cover of The Hollywood Reporter, McMahon was furious that Jericho didn't tell him. According to Jericho, McMahon insisted that he wasn't allowing Jericho to host the show, and the two had a verbal back and forth, which included McMahon claiming that Jericho was fired. The two would eventually work things out, and Jericho was allowed to host the show with McMahon's blessing.
Wow.
Number 4, Mustafa Ali. It's not always main event talent that have had the courage to stand up to Vince McMahon, as Mustafa Ali earned a ton of respect from his peers and fans when he stood up for himself in an argument with McMahon. During the development stages of Ali's infamous New American persona, McMahon pitted something to Ali that Ali would have never in a million years be comfortable in doing. His refusal led to a confrontation between himself and McMahon was so furious with Ali's act of defiance that he was pulled from WWE TV indefinitely. It was reported following the argument that Ali had requested his WWE release, which at the time was outright rejected by WWE. Number 3, Nails.
Who is Nails?
Nails had one of the most controversial firings of all time, as he was fired for literally assaulting Vince McMahon.
Wow.
In late 1992, Nails confronted McMahon in his office over pay dispute, and according to Bret Hart, Nails cornered McMahon in his office
that man's money, Vince.
for over 15 minutes. It was believed that this verbal tirade escalated into Nails knocking McMahon over in his chair and choking him.
Wow.
With some more insight into the crazy incident in his autobiography. Kevin Nails cornered Vince McMahon in his office and screamed at him for 15 minutes about all the lies he'd been told. His yelling got so loud I got goosebumps up my back as I listened from down the hall. Suddenly there was a loud crash. Nails had knocked Vince over his chair, choking him violently, until Lanza, Slaughter and a swarm of agents teamed up to pull him off. Nails walked out and immediately called the police and accused Vince of making a sexual advance toward him. Vince was charged as sexual assault, and the charges were dropped soon after.
Okay.
Some of the boys actually admired Nails for snatching Vince while covering his tracks to not get charged himself. The last thing Vince wanted was another scandal. Number 2, Brock
Lesnar.
Now, the WrestleMania 34 main event was met with widespread criticism from fans and critics alike. The main event saw Brock Lesnar collide with Roman Reigns for the Universal title, and there was no demand to see the matchup, especially in the main event slot of the biggest show of the year. Due to fan resentment towards the match, the live crowd turned on both men as they booed and chanted for other wrestlers that weren't even in the match. Lesnar was absolutely livid with the response to the matchup, and when he got backstage, he threw his title directly at Vince McMahon.
I remember that.
It was reported that a full-blown argument between the two took place. Whilst the argument was said to be intense, the two
it worked it out.
And the two have managed to maintain
Brock is Vince's boy anyway.
Over the past 5 years. And number 1,
Undertaker.
The Undertaker. There's no greater bond in pro wrestling than the bond between The Undertaker and Vince McMahon. The two see each other
They're like
as family,
brothers.
and it came as no surprise when McMahon inducted the dead man into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2022. A friendship aside, the two have butted heads in the past, most notably in 1997, when the dead man felt utterly betrayed by McMahon. When the Montreal Screwjob went down, the dead man was bewildered. The Undertaker had a great relationship with Bret Hart and had no idea that McMahon planned on screwing Hart out of the title. The Undertaker wanted answers, and he reportedly confronted McMahon and demanded to know what on earth McMahon was thinking. According to Hart during an interview with Sports Illustrated, the dead man was pounding on McMahon's door, insisting that McMahon explained himself to the locker room. I punched out Vince McMahon in the locker room, but the only reason Vince was in the locker room was because of Taker. Undertaker pounded on Vince's door after the screw job. He said, "Get your ass down to that dressing room and explain yourself." And Vince wouldn't have listened to anybody else. I wrote Taker a letter when I left. Hart said, "You have to be the voice of the dressing room and the leader now that I'm gone." They
took their role
WWE
to perfection.
Stood up to Vince McMahon. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more.
Alright, y'all, great video, man. Some of this stuff I did not know that those superstars was the ones that stood up to Vince McMahon, especially the first one, the Shield, when they stood up to Vince and kind of reversed the decision on a 6-man tag team match that would have definitely ended their run as a trio. But overall, man, this is a great video, man. Let me know down below in the comments of what y'all thought of my reaction to this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.